Hey everyone, what's up? Yeah, sorry about this. I have to do it without streaming, so I apologize for that. But I wanted to talk about the Retron 77. Now, in case you guys don't know what the Retron is, just checking, making sure nothing goes wrong here. But just in case you guys don't know what the Retron 77 is, basically it's being released by Hyperlink in time for the holiday season. And just like Hyperlink had done with the other Retron systems, this is based off another classic game console, but probably the oldest they've ever done. And the oldest in terms of the game consoles that they've tried to emulate, combine together, you name it. This is probably, like I say, the oldest one they've done yet, because this is based off the Atari VCS, otherwise fondly known as the Atari 2600. Now, unlike the AtGames Flashback series, which their Atari 2600 Flashback you could actually modify to play cartridges, but most of the time the Flashback series is just like what the NES Classic was, and what the NES Classic was, and that is basically in their case about 60 games built in. So, with that said, that's the big difference with games being built in, is this retro system by Hyperlink will allow you to play cartridge games, actual physical Atari 2600 cartridge games. You'll be able to play those. You won't have to, like I say, worry about modifying something like the Atari 2600 Flashback to play cartridge games. You'll be able to do it right off the bat, because what this is going to allow you to do is play them on your high-def television. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, wait a minute. We can already do that if we buy an actual 2600 and get the coax female F connector, RF connector, whatever you want to call it, to allow us to connect it to the coax connection or output or input, whatever you call it, on the back of our televisions. And that's true. That's true. You can do that, but what this allows you to do is use HDMI or AV cables to connect to the television right off the bat and not have to worry about that. You won't have to worry about buying an extra accessory or an extra part just so you can play the 2600 on your HD television that you may have at home that has, like I say, the connector, the output input RF connector on the back. You won't have to worry about that. Instead, you'll be able to play your system automatically right off the bat. It's easy to install. So that's what the Hyperlink is. And this is something that, for anybody that grew up in the late 70s and mostly throughout the 80s and early 90s, this is something that a lot of us that grew up at that time are actually going to look forward to, because let's be honest, you can easily get a 2600 very cheap out there. You can get the games even cheaper, depending on what kind of games you are looking for. But overall, you never know whether or not that 2600 that you're purchasing is still in proper working condition. You don't know that. So Hyperlink basically is saved you that trouble by doing this. And furthermore, what this allows you to do is actually play your games in 720 to 1080p high definition, or if you have a 4K UHD television, it allows you to go to that, that 2460p or whatever it's called. So that right there is, or the 2160p, whatever you call it, that right there is pretty cool. That right there is something that is really, what a lot of fans were hoping for. A lot of nostalgic people have been hoping for. Now you're going to be able to play your Atari 2600 games without having to worry about all that fuss and muss. Now, as you probably see in the thumbnail picture that you clicked on here, basically the design is similar. Basically, they based the design, the way they built it on the outside. Yes, it's smaller. There's no doubt. It's basically about the average, about the size of the other Retron, some of the other Retron systems. But basically, what they did is they based the design off the original wood texture and groove that the original 2600 had. It has on the front 3 switches. I don't know if it has a switch on the back or not, because I think Pat the NES Punk, and his co-host Ian mentioned that they might have 3 or 4 switches instead of 6. So with that said, with that possibility, 3 or 4 is better than nothing, right? But basically, the 3 on the back are: you have an on and off switch. You have an on and off switch. You have one, I think, for difficulty, and I think you have some for something else. You have another one that's kind of like for something else. I can't think of what it is right now. I have to remember. But basically, you're able to. You kind of get a similar feel with the with this Retron system that you got with the original 2600. The only difference, like I said, switch-wise, is 3 of the switches are going to be on the side, up front, in the front of the console, and not on the top. But like I say, the way they designed the console is that on the outside it looks very much like a very small miniature 2600. And like I said, the biggest difference between a flashback that you can modify and this is you don't have to modify anything, because you can play your cartridge games right off the bat. And essentially, if you don't have any Atari games, physical Atari cartridges, if you look on Amazon and I'm sure eBay, they're easy to get. And they're kind of easy to get, if not cheap to get. So it's going to be really interesting whether or not these games go up in price with this thing coming out. But yeah, most of them are rather cheap and affordable to get. So the other thing as well is you'll be able to, if you have them on hand, if you still have them in some capacity, you'll be able to play your original Atari joysticks on this system. I think you might even be able to play the Atari 2600 joysticks on this system as well. They even have, I think, USB slots on this thing, so that you could play the USB Atari joysticks on there. So it's really cool. That's really a good addition. Another thing as well that they have, that when this got reported, that unfortunately the Retron HD, which was their answer to the NES Classic, doesn't have, that they put in here, is save features. So instead, I had to move quickly there. So instead of beginning a game and just starting it all over again to get to where you once were when you ended it, you'll be able to start where you left off. So that's a pretty cool feature. And like I said, the other thing is you'll be able to play the games in 720 to 1080p resolution, most probably as well in 4K UHD 2160p as well. So that's an interesting perspective. The only downside that some people are looking at right now is that the suggested retail price, the possible suggested retail price, is $80. Now some people have actually justified the price hike a little bit on this, because of the fact that unlike the Retron HD, which was, I could say, their answer to the NES Classic, this has a little bit more to it. It has save features, unlike that one, so that could justify it. And the fact that this is actually based on an older console that nobody thought they would do. Nobody thought would probably get a retro system based on it, but yet here you go. Now, I can only think that the reason they did this is because they saw the success, or at least the moderate success, that the flashback series were having. So they probably figured, well, if people like the flashback series, maybe we can take it a step further. Them at Hyperlink, they probably figured, well, we can take it a step further and we can give them the actual of enjoyment of playing games physically. The original physical Atari games on their television. Hyperlink probably figured, well, we could take it a step further, and instead of doing another flashback-like system, we can actually allow them to play the physical games, play the actual physical cartridges on television on a system that will play them without a problem. So basically that's what they've done. Now, here's the thing, do I think this is something that will lead to do I think this is the beginning of something that will lead to other things for Hyperlink as far as Atari consoles go? I can't really say, but I think if any console, and I'm sorry for the wind or anything, I think if any console Atari-wise gets the Retron system treatment in the future, I think if any game gets the Retron treatment in the future, any game console Atari-wise, I think it's going to be the Jaguar. I really do. I think the Jaguar is going to get the Atari, is going to get the Retron treatment if the Retron 77, the retro system take on the Atari 2600 is successful. And I think it's going to be, honestly. I think the Retron 77 is going to be successful. I think people that grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s like I did are going to really appreciate being able to play their games in 720 to 1080p, possibly even 4K, thanks to the fact that they don't have to go through the whole fuss and muss of not just buying a 2600 affordably, but also having to buy an extra part that will allow them to play it on their game, on their televisions today. So a lot of people are going to be very appreciative of that. Again, the only thing that I think is going to probably detract some people, but I don't think it's going to be that bad, is the fact that the possible retail price could be $80. But I don't think it's going to be that bad of a deal, because some people, like I said, have justified it by saying, look, there's reasons for it, the save features, the fact that it's based on an older console, stuff like that kind of goes in its favor of justifying the price, the price hike as far as of what it's going to go for. Now, do I think it's going to be $80? I don't know. I think if anything, you're probably looking at more like, I'd say on average about maybe $70 at most. So that's what I think the suggestive retail price could be, is about $70. But is it going to be worth it in the end? I think it will be. And again, this could be the start of something new for Hyperlink. You know, start of something new as far as Atari systems go for Hyperlink, because I think what they're going to be able to do after this, if the Retron 77 is successful, is they can go two ways. They can actually do a Retron version of the 5200 and actually for the first time ever give a lot of folks that had that 5200 a proper working 5200. And then I think if that succeeds, you could probably look at a Retron, a Hyperlink Retron take on the Jaguar as well. So I think this is the start of something good as far as Hyperlink is concerned and Atari is concerned. I think the only worry that some people have is, will all the games be playable? Because there are concerns that some games may not be playable. I think the games will be playable. I think because one of the games they used in the picture that they put into the slot, in the cartridge slot, was the Pac-Man game. So I think all Atari games hopefully will be playable. So I'm almost assuring that. And I'm sure that's what Hyperlink is doing right now. They're testing out as much Atari cartridge-based games that they can get. And I can tell you this, Star Wars wise, if you have the Star Wars games, you're definitely going to want to get the Atari ones when this comes out. Because, you know, what a way to get yourself Star Wars pumped for the new movie. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I think it's a great idea. And again, I believe it's going to lead to something more between Hyperlink and doing some Retron Atari systems down the line. So let me know what you guys think down below. Let me check what the time is right now. I've got about 12 minutes. I got to get me some lunch. But let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. And that's all I'm going to say for now. I am out. God bless. Take care.